Hey everybody, Terry over here again with another Guitarjitsu lesson. I hope that you guys are really enjoying the course and not finding it too complicated. If you just take it, step by step and bit by bit, I think you'll get a lot out of it. Again, if you have any questions, just post them and I'll get back as soon as I see them. We're going to have another class. I think this is going to be about the last one on note identification on the fretboard. After this class and you learn this, I think you'll pretty much have the fretboard mastered. That is up to the 12th fret, and in another lesson we'll cover the 13th through the 24th. But you'll see what's going on with that. But so what have we done so far? We have found the root scale, which shows you every note on the fretboard as far as any one particular note, like all the A's or all the G sharps or whatever you're looking at. And then from the low E, we learned our major and minor chords off of all those roots, which is pretty cool. And then from the low E notes that we learned to build the bead scale, which the bead scale will help you locate any note around a certain fret area. Like if you were trying to find a C chord around the 7th fret, you could do it. And then we learned the expanded bead scale, which allowed you to locate any note from any note that you're on, and also how to figure out progression fragments. So if you're playing over a song or something, improvising over a song, or just whatever, you can find the root notes of the chords in the progression in a certain shape and move that shape all over the fretboard, which is huge. It's very, very powerful. It's using a lot of things to come up with a little index, a little fragment, progression fragment that you can move around. And once you figure that fragment out, it's kind of easy to move around and play. This lesson is going to make it possible for you to be able to randomly pick a note on your guitar and look down and know what the note is. We haven't went from that direction. We went from the low E string up, but now we're going to go any string and we're going to be able to name the note. And what you're going to need to do that is you've committed the E string to memory up to the 12th fret. You're going to need to commit the A string. It's necessary really to eliminate some of the mental gymnastics that you're having to do here to be able to do this. You need to know your low E string up to the 12th fret, all the whole notes, and you need to know all the whole notes on the A string up to the 12th fret. So I'm going to put them down here. Of course, the open A string is A. It's the equivalent of the 12th fret, which is also A. Then you've got B on the 2nd and C on the 3rd. If you ever made a C chord, then that's the root of the C chord in first position. The 5th fret is going to be D, and then the 7th and 8th fret are going to be E and F. So on the 7th and 8th fret on the E string, it was B and C. So they're always two that's close together. The E and the F and the B and the C don't have any space between them. Any sharps or flats. You know what I mean. Any space between them. So E, F, G on the 10th fret. I guess you start over, of course on the 12th fret with A. So you just need to get familiar with that. You can drill on it. Like I said, by drawing random numbers. Another way that's kind of cool to do it is just during your day when you see a random number somewhere, if it's on a street sign or anywhere that you happen to look, take the first number, either the right or left of if it's like 300, you could take like 3 and say, what's the 3rd fret on the A string? And it's a C. And you could do the same thing with your E. And of course, if you know all the whole notes, then you're going to know all the in-between notes as well. So you kind of need to do this and know these two strings. It's not hard. And I'll show you how that's really going to be a boon for you when it comes to naming individual notes very quickly up here in this next part. Okay, I'm going to teach you something that I've called a couple of different names, and all this stuff, the terminology that I'm coming up with, the reason why it's so weird is because I had to make it up, because I've never seen it anywhere else. So anytime you get technical with something, you have to have the language of that technology to describe what you mean. So when you're talking to your students in the future, when you say beat index, they're going to know what you're talking about, instead of the tuning index of the guitar among the strings or whatever. So it's a terminology that you understand what we're talking about as we study Guitarjitsu. So this is something I call the note tree. And like a tree, it's got roots. Now when you learned your, this is horrible to do this in this truck. When you learned your low E string, you could identify any of the notes up to the 12th fret. You learned that string, but you also learned to name all the notes on your top E, because it's a duplicate string, right? So you have 2 strings there for the price of 1. And really you have 3, because if you think about our root scale, let's say we started off with a note on our 5th fret here. It has a duplicate note 2 frets down and 2 strings up here on the D string. That's the same, that's the bottom part of the beginning of our root scale. So you could come up 2 frets and then down to the low E string. So anytime you want to know what a note is on this D string, you would come 2 frets up the neck toward, this is the low E, and this is the tuning keys and stuff. So you'd come 2 frets up the neck and then reference your low E. And it's going to tell you what that note is. And of course, like I said, you can always reference the top. These 2 strings are the same. So you got 3 strings here that can be identified. So you see 2 frets up, reference the low E when you're trying to figure out a note on your D string. Now you learned your A string as well, and it's the same thing, because all you got to do to know any note on your G string is come 2 frets up and now reference your A string. I'm going to get a close-up of this hopefully in a minute and you can see it. This is also just your root scale. Your root scale starting on your A string will be the same as the G string 2 frets up. So anytime you want to know what a G string note is, anywhere on the G string, come 2 frets up from the note and look at your A string and it'll tell you what note it is. Now this only leaves 1 string left out, and that's the B string. And if any note on the B string, if you'll go 2 frets up and come down, boy this is messy, to the A string again, and you've got it. Let's see if I can get a little closer. It doesn't look too great, does it? So anytime you want to know a note on your D string, go 2 frets up, go to your E string. It'll be the same note. Anytime you want to know a high E string, it's going to be a duplicate of the low E. Got 3 strings there that you can name. Anytime you want to know a note on your G string, come 2 frets up and reference your A string, whatever note that is on the A string. And then any note you want to know on your B string, go 2 frets down this time. I hope you can see that I crossed into that fret. So all this is going to the 5th fret on your E and your A string. I wrote it kind of messy. I'll try to rewrite it and put a little clip of it up. I wrote a lot better than this. But you go 2 frets down. Go in here, we're going from the 3rd fret up to the 7th, to the 5th fret, and then going down to the A string, and that's going to be the same note. So you could use this to, let's say you were you were looking at a chord someone was holding, and you want to figure out the notes of that chord, or the chord that you're holding, and you want to identify each note in the chord. You could simply run this pattern with each note and write the note names down. It's very useful, and it's massively impressive too when you can just, have someone randomly hit a note on the guitar and you look and just run this little pattern right quick and figure out. And of course, if it landed on the 6th on the 6th fret, then you would know that it would be, in that case, an A sharp if it was on the low E, right? It's because your sharps and stuff's just in the middle between your whole tones. So you could pretty quickly name any note on the guitar. It's useful to you, like I said, to figure out what notes are in chords, and lots of things you might find a way to apply this information may be useful to you. This is just what I've come up with. And like I said, it's very impressive to be able to just name any note anyone holds down on the guitar anywhere. So I'm gonna put a better diagram of this up for you, and I think that's gonna be it for the video. Be right back. Okay, I think I got it a little bit clearer here. You can see the D string note being identified here on the 5th fret. The 7th fret D note is an A note. The D string note on the 7th fret is being identified here on the 6th string, as well as the high E string. And then the G string note is being identified here on the 5th fret A string, and the B string is being identified on the A. So 2 frets down to the A string for your B notes, anything on the B string, 2 frets up and to the A string for any note on your G string, and then 2 frets up and reference your E string for any note on your D string. And so you got it covered. This is a great little exercise to do. It's a great little exercise to do to be able to name notes. I think that's about it for note identification. I could be wrong, but stay tuned. I got some really good videos to put up still, and of course we got to get into our pentatonic scales and diatonic scales and modes and things like that. And I'm really enjoying making the videos, and thank you for putting up with this shoddy quality of lighting. As soon as I can, I'm going to get a light to stand up. This is just the truck lighting in here, so it's really horrible. It's made so I can look down and see things. It's not really made for anybody to see me. So anyway, thanks a lot. Got any questions, just post them down at the bottom. I'll do my best to answer, and tell your friends, like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and see you next time.